and in this video I will be taking a look at the Falkon web browser. Now Falkon is really interesting because it's basically Chromium but KDE, sort of, because it's a Qt thing, but what's interesting about it is that it's basically Chromium, but it's just sort of like a Qt KDE type implementation of it. So that's interesting, where it's, if you want to use Chromium but you want it to go through a couple hands first before, after Google, so that you are not using something directly from Google, then Falkon might be a good option for that use case, in that because it's their implementation of Chromium, it doesn't come with all the nonsense Google might want to put into Chromium in general. So such bad features that the Chromium may get, there's a chance that the Falkon doesn't necessarily get all the bad things from Chromium, from Google directly. The people behind the Falkon might decide to get rid of some of the bad things and make it look like, make it work like something that's not that bad. Anyway, I'm just talking nonsense. Yeah, what a bad introduction. Back to the topic. Falkon is a solid web browser in the sense that it definitely does what a web browser does. Now the only problem with the Falkon I could think of is that it is a Chromium fork. But if you want to have a Chromium fork, if you want to have the functionality and whatever widespread popularity and such that comes with being a Chromium fork, then it's definitely something that you can consider using. Now, I would not recommend using Falkon in general. The people who I would recommend using Falkon to are those who want Chromium. So if you want Chromium, but just not the Chromium, then Falkon is my recommendation for those people. Because Falkon, well, as you can see right from the start here on the front page, search results provided by DuckDuckGo. So we get rid of the Google connection in that sense. Yeah, I can search for stuff and it's no Google. There's no Google to be seen here. So that's the benefit. So Falkon is Chromium, but just not the Chromium. It's Chromium but KDE, kind of. I'm not using KDE here, I'm using LXQT. But yeah, so naturally the Falkon does basically web browsing like one might expect. Now there is one thing I did do there. I disabled JavaScript, as you can see. Websites that require JavaScript will of course not work if I disable JavaScript. Here allow JavaScript is blocked or not toggled. So as you can see, that doesn't work. But if I go to gnu.org, then if we just wait for the connection to be made, which is taking awfully long for some reason. Anyway, so yeah, as you can see, this web page works just fine, because a website that doesn't really have JavaScript will work just fine. And video playback works.
Every choice we make about the technology we use in our daily life.
Yeah, video playback works, everything works. There's no reason JavaScript should be required for using the World Wide Web. I find it ridiculous that people ever accepted the premise that to use the World Wide Web requires that the user run JavaScript, basically just user-side code execution on their computers. It's ridiculous. Why? Why people ever approve of this? It should have never become a thing. Look at this website working just fine without JavaScript being enabled. This website runs just fine, but this one doesn't. This is just an arbitrary example, but anything that uses JavaScript is a bad website. But as we can see, the JavaScript can be enabled here, so it can be made work. So if you do want to use the JavaScript, then yeah, Falkon definitely does work. Now there is an extension I like to use with Firefox. It does not work with Falkon, unfortunately. It's called Libre.js. And if it wasn't for this extension, I might be using other browsers than Firefox. But the reason I stick with Firefox is because of this extension. Largely for the most reason. There is also uBlock Origin, which is also really good. Which is also something that I use on Firefox. Now I wouldn't switch to Falkon for the reason I've already discussed. That it is Chromium and I don't like Chromium. But I will still take a look at it. And I will discuss it. I will discuss it as it is. It's a Chromium fork. It's a fork of Chromium, so it's basically like a lesser evil, so to speak. I don't recommend Falkon as your first choice. Falkon should only be used if you want to use a Chromium base. If for some reason you just want something based on Chromium, yeah. So I will click on the first top left video here. I do not know who this guy is and I'm not endorsing him.
October 30th, 2024. Today's my mom's birthday and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, the video playback works just fine. Again, I don't know who that is and I'm not endorsing him. That's just an example. I only clicked on the top left first result there, just as a demonstration of the video playback capabilities of the web browser. So yes, video playback is working just fine as usual, and like yeah, there's a bunch of nonsense here, but yeah, let's just go back to the settings, I guess, because that's what's good to take a look at always, and I didn't go through all of them yet. Some good stuff, yeah, basic stuff. Password manager, that's very interesting. It has a password manager thing put into it. That's a useful feature for those who want to use that. Privacy managed cookies. I did take a slight look at this, but like it does filter some stuff and like yes, sure, like. Now I assume filter means ban. I'm actually not sure. Filter. It should. I interpret that to mean that I'm now blocking tracking cookies and I'm now blocking third-party cookies. And then if I do this, I'm accepting them. That's what I assume. Now something useful to do is deleting these on close. That could be possible, and do that. If you enable all of them, that's a good setup. If you don't want to do that, then you can do this. That's also reasonable. Again, I assume that this blocks them if I enable them. If I disable them, now they are allowed. Yeah, that's interesting. It just says filter. What does that mean? Either say block or allow. What does filter mean? That's kind of poor choice of wording. I don't like that. Cookie, whitelist cookie, blacklist. It's also something interesting. That's neat. So you can always basically allow from certain sources but disable from everywhere else. So as you can see here, even if you have disabled saving cookies, so I can just disable them all the way like that, and then add exceptions. That's a good idea. That's probably my recommendation. You don't allow them in general, but you can make exceptions here, and then you can just have blacklist as well. So that's a good functionality to have. These are some good settings, definitely. Yeah, I approve of that, I guess. HTML5 permissions. What's this about? What do I do with this? This is a strange interface. I don't know what this does. There's no button that does anything. That's weird. JavaScript options. Oh yes, JavaScript. What a pain. No. I don't need notifications. Extensions. Adblock is good. That's good. Auto scroll, I like auto scroll. Enable. Flash cookie manager, what on earth is this? What does it do? You can easily view, delete flash cookies. Flash cookies? Are we talking about the flash player thing? Like a flash, the flash of flash player. The Flash player Flash. Is that what we're talking about? Mouse gestures. Meh. There doesn't seem to be any options or settings for these plugins they just have, or extensions as they are called here. They just kind of are there. Spell checker. There's not that many options here. Now one thing that does bother me, I could not find proxy settings here. Privacy, no. Notifications, no. Extension. Yeah, I can't find proxy settings. That's unacceptable. There should always be proxy settings. If the web browser doesn't have proxy settings, then it's no good. Right. I can't find proxy settings. I don't think there are proxy settings. That's really bad. That's unfortunate. That's very bad. That's no good. Yeah, there is no proxy settings. That's just nonsense. Right, so there's two ways to look at Falkon. Either you take issue with Chromium, in which case Falkon is really bad. But if you don't take any issue with Chromium, or you just need to use a Chromium base for some reason, you just want to use Chromium and you don't mind the Google issue and whatever, you just don't care about that stuff or whatever, then Falkon is good. So like, of the two of them, Chromium versus Falkon, definitely pick Falkon. Falkon is the better one. So Falkon better than Chromium. Chromium. So that's something to put in your mind. Falkon is better than Chromium. So yeah, that's like easy. So never pick Chromium. There's no reason you should ever use Chromium. So that thing, just put it out. Away with it. Don't touch it. Stay away from it. But then, because Falkon is still a fork of Chromium, I'm just talking about like Chromium proper here. So what's better than that is something like Conqueror. Now I don't remember. I keep forgetting how that is spelled. I don't know if that's the correct spell. Conqueror. Yes, that is the correct spelling. Conqueror is better. There's another video I made, the previous video where I reviewed. No, it's not really a review. Who cares what it is? The previous video where I discussed the web browser Conqueror. Conqueror is better. So you should pick Conqueror then. So of the three of them, Conqueror is the best one, Falkon the second best one, and Chromium is something you should just avoid. And you should never use Chromium proper. Because there's a better Chromium also that's called Ungoogled Chromium. And that's better than Chromium proper. So yeah, definitely never use the Chromium proper. That's definitely something you should avoid. If you want to use the Chromium for some reason, there's no reason not to use ungoogled Chromium. Ungoogled Chromium is just Chromium, but it's just ungoogled. So like it's the Chromium, but just ungoogled. So that's Chromium. Then there's the Chromium. So like that's the there's the proper Chromium. That is the Chromium from Google directly from the Google people, and it has all the Google nonsense built in, and that's definitely something you should avoid. Like absolutely, never touch that thing. Never touch that thing. That thing is like treat it as if it's cursed. Never touch it. If you touch it, you get a curse laid on you, and that's no good. So if you need to use the Chromium for some reason, never use Chromium proper. Always use ungoogled Chromium. That is if you for some reason need to use it. No, Falkon is the better option. Falkon is just an implementation of Chromium, so it's a fork of Chromium basically. It's a fork of Chromium, whatever, who cares what it's called. So if you need to use Falkon, if you need to use Chromium, then Falkon is good. But if you don't need to use the Chromium browser itself, but you don't mind using a component that Chromium has, the Blink web engine. Conqueror uses the Blink web engine that is also used in these. So it uses a component, it shares a component, the web engine. Conqueror has the same web engine. Conqueror is not Chrome. but it uses the same engine as Chrome. So both Chromium and Conqueror use the same engine, the Blink web engine. At least I think it's called Blink. Apparently it's just called, quote, web engine, unquote, seemingly, according to some source. I'm somewhat confused on that actually. Let's look it up. Blink web engine. Let's actually look that up. Where am I now? No, that's the wrong link. Chromium. What? That's Wikipedia. Why did it take me to some other site? Blink is a browser engine, blah blah blah. Type browser engine. Right, now I get it. Because there's the Qt web engine. That was called. Oh yes, now I get it. In the previous video I was confused about that being called. Yes, now I get it. I understand. Okay, so let me illustrate, because in the previous video I got confused. Now what's going on now? In the Conqueror web browser, as I was taking a look at the settings, I noticed that there's the option web engine. This must be the K web engine, the Qt web engine, whatever it is. It's the Qt web engine. So that's why it's called just web engine. It's because it's the Qt web engine, or whatever it's called. So when I look up the Conqueror Wikipedia, what's going on now? Enough with this nonsense. I don't have time for this. I don't have time to figure out what that one is. Conqueror Wikipedia. I'm just gonna type in Wikipedia for some reason. Here. So Qt web engine. It's called Qt web engine. So that's what it stood for. So it is the Blink web engine. It's just a fork of it. So the Qt web engine, it is Blink. It's like a fork of Blink or something. So it is just Blink. If I click there, yeah, that just takes me to the Chromium. But it's the Blink web engine. So yeah, right. So that takes us back to here. Conqueror uses the same component. So you should prefer Conqueror of these options. So if possible, use Conqueror. Conqueror is my recommendation. If not possible for whatever reason, then Falkon. Falkon is the better one of the rest of them. And if you absolutely need to use the Chromium, then ungoogled Chromium is as far as you can go. Below that is just something you should never touch, something unholy. Like that thing, no. There's no reason. None. No. You need to understand this. Never use the Chromium proper, because the proper version of Chromium, it's just not good, because this is the proper version. The proper, because ungoogled Chromium is basically it is the same as the proper version, but the real proper version of Chromium is the ungoogled version. So it's the ungoogled version. The ungoogled Chromium is the proper Chromium. That's what I say, because it is the proper Chromium. Right, because that's the correct Chromium. Ungoogled Chromium. Ungoogled Chromium. I believe this is the correct link. Let's see if there's a releases. Is there a binary, or do I have to start? That's stupid source code. That's annoying. No one likes compiling software. It would be better if there was a binary. I believe somewhere I found there was some site somewhere that hosted some binaries, but who knows if that's some weird third-party entity. Who cares? That's not what this video is about. You can go and figure that out for yourself if you need to use the proper Chromium version for some reason. Then that's the correct proper version of Chromium. This one isn't. This is the fake Chromium. Now I'm just complicating this. No, that's the proper version. This is an unofficial proper version. So, unofficial proper version. Right. So, that's the ungoogled Chromium. Ungoogled Chromium is the unofficial proper version. This is the proper version. Yes, that's the proper way to put them. Yes. So, prefer Conqueror. Conqueror is the one you should be using. So, yeah, I get rid of them from there. Conqueror. It's made by the KDE people, so this is the Conqueror web browser. It's also a file manager for some reason. but yeah, it's a web browser. You should be using something like Conqueror. I will also show some of it here because why not? It has better options, and as you can see, this one has a proxy option. That's good. For some reason, the Falkon lacks that option. That's unacceptable. Like, that's some GNOME Web type nonsense. Like, GNOME Web doesn't have proxy settings. That's nonsense. Why are you copying what GNOME Web is doing? Yikes. That's no good. There's some random version information, I guess. What's that with Mozilla? I guess that's just some license stuff if there's like some shared source code. KHTML like gecko. Who fucking knows what's going on there? I don't know what that's about. Anyway, yeah, right. Wait, there is proxy! I found it! Right, so it seems like I was full of crap. I was totally mistaken. Okay, well I take all back. I take it all back. I was totally and utterly mistaken. Fortunately I was able to catch that in this video before I ended this video. I would have made a clown of myself if I had ended the video without having discovered the fact that there is indeed proxy here. So right, I'm gonna have to eat my words now. Right, I have now eaten my words, I was totally mistaken. There is a proxy option here after all. It was hidden behind this browsing tab, and it's the third tab here. Well, that's kind of convoluted. Allow storing cache and nonsense. Hey, there it is, allow saving history. Or deletes history on close, that's good. Let's do that. So there is a good way to do that. So yeah, sure. Manual, let's write on socks 5, that could be used for Tor. But I2P could be done like this. Wait, whoa, what's going on here? Whoa. Right. 4. Right, and that could be used for I2P. I'm not gonna do that now for this video, but that's something you could do. But yeah, there is proxy after all, I was mistaken. Totally and utterly mistaken. Right. So, my bad there, I made a mistake. Right, it did have proxy settings after all. Excellent. It's good to have proxy. Right, well, I guess I've kind of taken a look at that. Well, one thing I do like about this is that the adblock is already pre-installed and enabled. So, when I say that Falkon is Chromium, but just basically it's better. Like, that's a good way to put it, I guess. It's Chromium, but better. So, when I said it's Chromium, but not Chromium, what I meant by that, by not being Chromium, I meant it doesn't have the bad features associated with the Chromium. So, like, it's Chromium minus the nonsense. So yeah, but it is still Chromium, so if you want to avoid Chromium, you need to avoid Falkon as well. You need to avoid all of the Chromium forks, because they are all forks of Chromium. You know, the Braves and the... Who cares? They are all Chromium forks, just avoid all the Chromium forks. That includes Falkon, so you should avoid Falkon if possible, because it is a Chromium fork. But if you don't take an issue with Chromium forks, you don't care, or you just don't mind it, or you just want to use a Chromium fork for whatever reason, then yeah, of all of the Chromium forks, Falkon is the best one that I'm aware of. Falkon is the best Chromium fork. Right. So if one is to use Chromium fork, it better be. I gotta get the spelling right. Falkon. Right. So that's the statement you have to remember. Let's also capitalize that correctly. Well, let's capitalize them all correctly. Right. So, Falkon is the best Chromium fork. If one is to use a Chromium fork, it better be Falkon. I suppose there's nothing else to this video, really. There's adblock settings too. I don't know what Noicoin list is. Hey, that's a list of these things that it blocks, I guess. Well, that's interesting. Huh. Easy list. What does that mean? Huh? What's in this thing? Custom rules. Options. Add rule, remove rule, subscription. Oh yes, it downloads the names that are blocked from some site. Learn about writing rules, update subscriptions. Yeah. Subscribes to the rule service that's in this thing. Yeah. Rule. But it's good that it enables that by default. You know, Falkon is Chromium but better. Falkon is Chromium minus the nonsense. Falkon is like a better ungoogled Chromium because it ungoogles it to the point that it even enables adblock by default. That's something that Google would never do. So if you want to use a Chromium fork, Falkon is the way to go. Anyway, but yeah, if you don't need a Chromium fork, then Falkon is not good because Falkon is still Chromium. So if you want to contribute to the free and open web or whatever you want to call it, I guess that's what people say, who knows. But yeah, if you want to contribute to that and you want to have like some competition or whatever in the web browser space, then yeah, you should avoid Chromium, and that includes Falkon. Well, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.